Well, welcome to the Drupal usability meeting for March 26th, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating the meeting. And also present are Aaron McHale, Anmol Goel, and Gaurav Malawat. So thank you all for coming. There are a couple of issues that were raised in the UX channel, and I'd like to have a look at them. So the first one is issue 3205746. And we're still in the early stages of this issue. It was only created yesterday, and we're trying to decide what to do about it. So the title is Group the Available Updates Report by Status, Make Each Collapsible. And the problem is that the available updates report is currently sorted by core versus contrib and then alphabetically inside the contrib modules. And that makes it rather hard to find the modules that need an update, and in particular, the modules that need a security update. And the issue description says it's already a very overwhelming UI. It would be great to improve the signal to noise ratio. So I looked at this just a little while ago and added some screenshots. So here's a screenshot of the page the issue's talking about, admin/reports/update. And there are, on this particular site, many modules installed, and I scrolled to the bottom of the page so you can see the web form module has a security update required, and that's, once you scroll to the bottom, it's easy to spot because it's highlighted in red. At least if your vision is good. If you're red-green colorblind, it's probably a lot harder to spot. And the other modules that need updates are highlighted in yellow. There's also a second page, the form where you can download updates if your server is configured appropriately. It's a much less fancy page, and it just has a form with a checkbox for each module. It only lists the modules that need an update, and the one in this case that requires a security update has a simple text alert, security update in parentheses. So that's the page at admin/reports/update/update. So any initial thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think I can agree that could be quite an overwhelming UI. I think I seem to remember maybe a year or so back, we looked at similar issues around this page, but I can't remember exactly what those issues were. I just remember in these calls we visited these pages. But yeah, I'm not sure if they were how related they were. But I think it was. I vaguely remember putting, like, it was one of the recommendations was having a detail element for those drop downs, which I think may have been, yeah, I think that may have been what was introduced. I think it was something to do with semantic versioning and things as well. But
yeah, that's where I'm hovering my mouse on the screenshot.
Yeah, yes, that sounds, yeah, that looks familiar.
So yeah, we certainly discussed that, as you say, probably about a year ago. There may have been other related issues.
Yeah.
I don't recall any particularly related to a large-scale overhaul of the page.
No, and I certainly think this could be like I feel like we would want to have the list ordered based on like your critical updates, then your just, regular updates and everything else that's obviously up to date. That would be my sort of first thought in the ordering.
Okay, Anmol, Gaurav? If you're saying anything, you're still muted. So of course, we have an existing pattern. So here I have a live site. And if I look at the status report, it doesn't have collapsible field sets, but it does group things into errors, warnings, and notices. We could use a similar pattern for the available updates and list the security updates first, then all the modules that need updates, and then all the others, perhaps grouped into core and contrib.
Yeah, I think reusing that pattern is a really sensible choice, especially because, as you highlighted, if you're colorblind and you don't as easily distinguish between the colors, it becomes more difficult to, or even if you're not, even if you're totally blind and you're navigating as a screen reader, it's more challenging to then understand that page. So I think if we were to group them by headings of, the critical updates and then sort of I don't know, optional updates and then everything else, like I think that might be and use heading levels. I think that would be a much more sensible, effectively, yeah, reusing this pattern that we have here.
Yeah, and it's not really part of our job for usability, but in terms of implementation, I know that we've used this pattern on some of the pages in the migrate UI. And of course, it's used here on the status report. I think we need to make it easier to use this template and pull it out of the, I guess, the system module. Is that where it lives now? And make it, and rename it so that it's easier to use. So now that we're contemplating using it in the third place. I also ran into one problem where a contrib module was generating some errors on the migrate page where this template was used, because the contrib module assumed that this was being used on the status report page.
Oh, that's interesting.
But that's a digression. I'm sticking to usability.
But
okay.
I think that's relevant though, because it highlights the assumptions that sometimes contrib developers or even site developers might make. They might assume, well, this pattern is only ever used here, therefore I can do something based on that assumption. So I think that is a worthwhile consideration. But again, we're talking about really the implementation here, not so much the UI itself, I think.
Right. Okay, so shall I post a comment here suggesting that they reuse the status report pattern and also perhaps open an issue to make that template more centrally located so that it's more natural to reuse it?
I think it's certainly worth exploring. Yeah, because I'm just having no prior knowledge of where that template is or how it's generated. It's hard to sort of say for sure. But if maybe it's worth doing a quick look at that for sure, if it is something we can make generic.
Okay. Yeah, I think reusing the pattern is good, and I think that listing security updates first would really go a long way to solving the problem in this issue. And I don't think we need to make it collapsible once we've done that.
I was just thinking as well, how far in terms of reusing that pattern do we want to go? Should it be, because you'll notice in this pattern, it's effectively each row is a two-column layout. And I wonder if that makes sense for maybe if you could Benji to flip back to the screenshot or that other screen just to see if it would make sense. So for instance, there is some information. I I don't know if it we'd probably want to workshop that slightly once we see what it maybe once we see what it looks like in the new pattern, whether it, maybe bring it back and see if it makes sense. How effectively how much of that existing pattern should we reuse, if that makes sense?
Uh-huh.
Because there's some sort of like there's some information that's similar in terms of what it's presenting. Like the way it's coloring this sort of, and on the left there it's got the similar icons, it's got the same kind of styling. Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
I'm
peek at the markup. I don't think this is a table.
no, it doesn't look like it, no. Oh no,
Right.
is that a table element there?
I'm sorry, where? H3
Oh no, no, sorry, it's all detailed. It looks
details.
like, yeah, okay.
So, so yeah, I think this can be reused without forcing a two-column presentation. Although,
Yeah.
um, you know, certainly this is very noisy. I guess there's a lot of information we have to present here. Um, and maybe making each of these a details element is a good idea, that we should have each row be expandable. And this is already a details element, so that would be that would fit the pattern, I think, pretty well. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I guess what would make sense is if maybe maybe a column based layout would actually help to reduce what you might say like visual noise. If you look at the entry there for Twig, what is it? The Twig tweaks. It's got like let's say you have Twig tweaks with its version as the first column on the left, and then the wider column on the right has like everything else in it. I don't know if that would make things worse or better, but again, I guess it depends how much. We're kind of going back to like, okay, if we make a, that pattern or template like a more generic thing, like how much of it do we then reuse here?
Mm-hmm. And of course, it would be helpful if we had a designer on today's meeting. I don't think we do. Okay,
Yeah, I
I'd
think
like
this is one
to,
of those ones we're probably going to have to workshop a bit.
yeah. So I'd like to move on, if unless there's anything more to say about this issue. So the other thing that was brought up in the UX channel is issue 2811555. Not clear what happens when you enable account administration pages in language detection and selection. So it's an issue from 4.5 years ago, which I guess just recently got some attention, well, I guess last fall and then the last day or two. And it is sort of, well, a usability issue, and sort of a what's going on here issue. So I guess I've got a basic site install running locally. And shortly before the meeting, I enabled Spanish. So standard installation profile, English only, and then I added Spanish, and it imported translations, of course. And if you now go to this other tab, detection and selection, there are all of these options. And I guess these are the options for determining whether to show the English version of the page or the Spanish version of the page. And the two selected by default are that you can select a language, and I'm not entirely sure where that selection is made, or from the URL, and that's, I think, the most common. That, well, actually, let's look at a page on the front of the site. This is the Olivero theme, and oh, I guess I haven't enabled the language selector block. No. It's not ES-doc, is it? Oops. No, I'm just guessing here.
Is it /es?
I'll give that a try.
So end of the URL.
Oh, oops. There we go. Thank you.
Hey.
Right. So I was putting the S in the wrong place. So, so this is the most common method of deciding what language to choose, but there are others. And the one that this issue is asking about is the one at the top. The detection method is called account administration pages. The description is account administration pages language setting, which adds nothing. If we check it off and click Save Settings, I don't see anything here on this page to explain what's happened. Let me just scan this text at the top. Yeah, I don't think anything has changed in that paragraph. So I know from reading the issue that what happens is that an option appears on the user edit pages. So here I previously loaded the only account page on the site for admin. So this was before I submitted that form. We talked last week before about grouping language settings together with locale settings, but that hasn't happened yet. But if I reload this page, I think there's going to be a new option. Yes. So here it is. I can choose English or Spanish. And well, I wouldn't do this in real life because I don't speak Spanish, but suppose I've checked that off and I go back to the home page without selecting. Do I now see the Spanish version by default? No, but that's because that's odd. I would expect to see the Spanish version because that's the first. So maybe if I deselect this, now will I see the Spanish version? No.
Maybe it's another. Yeah, maybe it's for only some administration pages.
Good point. So let's Open a random admin page. This looks like the English version. This looks like the English version. Oh, but I deselected URL, so it's going to give me a page not found. So
Well, something happened, but not
yeah.
probably not what we're expecting.
Oh, well, that's because I added ES to the URL and re-enabled
Yeah.
the URL detection. So yeah, it's certainly a problem that this description adds nothing to the information in the first column. It is not at all clear that you then have to go edit your user account. Oh, this account's preferred language for emails. This is also assumed to be the primary language of this account's profile information.
I think it's if you then, it looks like, because see the box below it, there's a box below it that says administrative language, administration page language. That's probably what it is, because I didn't see that before.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
That's it.
So yeah,
I guess that only applies for administration pages.
Well, that was, yeah, I guess. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was like to even see that drop down in the first place, presumably you need to have like I presume it's permission based, like a regular user that doesn't have access to administration pages wouldn't see that drop down, but like we kind of perfectly illustrated the problem here. There's absolutely no direction as to what you're supposed to do beyond when you enable that. Like
but it does seem to affect all admin pages. So here I do not have ES in the URL, but I'm seeing the Spanish version of the page because I did edit my user account and selected Spanish here. So definitely there's a problem here. So what is the solution?
Well, I don't have any good answers other than like the first thing that pops in my head maybe like linking to online documentation that explains more, because it's difficult to put a description into that column, like more than what's already there. Like it is such a small space to add more text to.
Well, it should be possible to put something longer there and it should wrap, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm just thinking in terms of like the visual overload of putting more text there. I guess it depends how much more text needs to be there.
Just testing for the length of the text. That's not so bad, is it? If it wraps to a second line, it also uses more of the available width.
Yeah, when it expands out like that, it's not too bad. Yeah, I think putting more information there is probably a good idea, but what that should be, I don't know yet.
And what about the first column, account administration pages? I think that's a poor description.
Yeah, I would agree. Like that seems to imply that it's specific to, like anything under slash people, because you got account administration pages, but it's appears to be the whole of the user interface. Is that right? Like it's every administration page?
Is it also, was it also the home page? No, not the front end of the site. So yes, it seems to be every administration page. And so there are two things. Each user gets to choose, and it only applies to user administration pages. So I'm beginning to think that we should say the first of those in the first column and the second of those in the second column. So we still need to do some wordsmithing, but I would say under detection method, something along the lines of user choice. And under description, only applies to administration pages. It's always embarrassing to type in front of an audience, isn't it?
I wonder if so. If you look at the bottom, there's selected language and language based on selected language. That's a bit of a weird sentence, but um, I I think I guess that's supposed to be that means the one that like the site language setting that's on the user account page. I would think, because there's two drop downs on the user account page. There's one for the site language and one for the administrative interface.
Right, so this last option, at least there's a button, configure. So that's some sort of
Yeah.
global choice that applies to everyone. So I think probably we would also have to say here, each user can select administrative language or whatever, however that's labeled. User edit form. This is not the final language, but sort of. Oh, I lost that previous. Did I reload this page?
I think as you went, yeah, you went there and back. Mustn't have saved the state.
Yeah.
So it looks like yes, it looks like Gaurav had to go to another meeting, and Amal seems to have dropped, but we seem to have been joined by Emily Novo as well.
Hi.
Yes. Hi, Emily.
Hey. So what issue are we discussing now?
So it is 281555, and not clear what happens when you enable account administration pages. So here I have a standard installation where I have enabled a second language, Spanish, and then going to this page, detection and selection. Here, let me go back to the usual reference. There we go. It's this first option that is very unclear. And we started out by saying that the description doesn't add anything to what it says in the first column. And it took some experimentation to figure out how it works. The issue mentioned that it's something on the user edit page. So if I edit my user account, scroll down, it's this administration pages language drop down that wasn't there before. And if I choose Spanish, then every administration page, such as this one, shows up in Spanish. So we're trying to figure out how to describe that more clearly. And my current suggestion is to say in the first column something along the lines of user choice, that this is something that each user gets to choose. And then under the description column, say something like, this setting applies to administration pages. And some indication, since there's no configure option, some indication of where that choice is made.
Okay.
It's kind of a tricky one.
So I kind of think that that's the information we want in each of these two places. And now it's just down to a question of wordsmithing, but that's just my opinion. Agree, disagree, other ideas?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how I feel about user choice in the first column, purely because I think in that column we need to indicate perhaps that it's like, I think the problem of the user choice is it kind of conflicts with selected language at the bottom, which is, I presume, is related to the other drop down on the user page.
Also, there's a drop-down that says, for detection method user, follow the user's language preference. So user choice is confusing compared to that.
Oh, I didn't even see that one. That must be the one I was thinking of then.
I believe this one is related to something specified in the browser.
No, I think that's the other drop down on that user edit form. So like the first, there's two language drop downs. I think that's the first one that's a site language. That would be my, no, wait, because that's unchecked.
Yeah, that one's not.
Okay, I have no idea what that relates to. This whole thing's confusing me.
Yeah, I don't think that user choice next to user is clear enough.
Interface translation. I have to I have to go back to English. So if you look at the help page, I think oh, not this page. Not interface translation, but try language. Language detection and selection. URL session. I don't think these match up with the labels on the page, do they? And they're certainly not in the default order.
Yeah, user, session, and browser, or browser isn't on there. User and session are. Selected
I think browser is.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, all of those are the same. Really.
User session,
So
browser,
here's
and
what's
then
also throwing me.
URL account administration pages. Until I changed it, that's what it said, and selected language. Okay, so these are the correct labels, but they're not in the default order.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we need is a link on this page to the corresponding help page.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it also, like, the whole wording, I think all of that wording is just throwing me in so many ways. Like, the pages there, I'm still not clear what the difference is between user and selected language. Like, I get the feeling from reading the help text there that one means that the selection field is exposed on the user form, while the other one is the one that actually does it. Like, I'm struggling to understand what the difference is between even those two options.
Well, selected language should be listed last because it's a fallback.
Oh, is that just like the site's default language?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
So
you could specify a non-default language as the fallback language, which is a little confusing, but.
okay, so here's a follow-up question to that then. Because in this current setup, we have the user option unchecked, but there's still a field on the user edit page to allow the user to specify the language. So like the user there is unchecked. So you would think that then the field on the user account page would have no effect, but it seems to have an effect because when you changed to Spanish, the site was in Spanish. Or maybe that was because you were changing the URL.
No, that only applied to administrative pages. So again, there are these two. The first one is
So
the
if
accounts
you've got
preferred language for emails. And this account's profile information. So that really doesn't affect very much. It was this one, and I'm going to leave it in English for now because I can't read Spanish. Yeah. I'm a poor American who only speaks one language. So let's try checking off user. And we'll reload this page and see if I have any other options. No.
Oh, the description changed for emails and site presentation. It now says.
Ah, you're right.
Oh, that's really subtle. Huh.
So does that mean that the home page will now be in Spanish? No.
I guess you would have to have the Spanish translations configured for that page though, because if that's is that a node or is that just a default page? Maybe it needs maybe it needs translations configured.
Well, we can see the Spanish version of the homepage. Then again.
Or not. Although we did have it before.
Oh, that's because, I don't know, URL. Did I do something wrong? /es.
I can't help feel that like this entire us trying to like brainstorm this issue is just a perfect illustration of all of the problems of what is going on here, and that this is far bigger than just this issue.
Okay, but I think that as a first step, right, let's always think in terms of incremental improvements. As a first step,
otherwise we're going to go crazy.
We should add a link from this page to the help page. And we should change this list so that it matches the order on the language detection page.
Yeah, I think that would help quite a bit.
And it's almost in the right order. It's just that account administration pages is the only one that's out of order, right? That should be moved to the top. And then after that, URL session user, and then browser and selected language. Easy peasy. That I think will help. Oh, and you can tell I'm a back-end person because I always like to display my weights. Most people like to have the click and drag, right?
Oh, there you go. I always forget, does that persist across the site?
Yes, it does. I think it's saved in session storage.
Oh, that's neat.
Or maybe a cookie.
Well, whoever came up with that should get a cookie.
Emily, do you want to say anything more about this issue?
No, I think that's a good solution.
Okay. Great, then I can leave comments on these two issues. And we'll see if where they go from here. And any other issues to bring up? We do still have 10 or 15 minutes if we'd like to use it.
None from me.
Okay, hearing nothing. Thank you for coming, and I hope to have you on the meeting again next week.
Yep. Thanks, Benji.